energy
Because
security?
on the roadmap which we have laid down for the country, our requirements are going to increase. And if I may briefly state what the roadmap is, our principal challenge has been to restore the credibility of the Indian economy. We have to restore the credibility of the decision-making process in India. India can't grow if the world feels that decision-making in India has been paralyzed, a phrase which was popularly used a few months or a few years ago. And therefore, quick and effective decision-making, looking at sectors which need to be reformed, where we need to progress further. And we do believe, the present government does believe, that you need a large amount of investment coming and flowing into this country. Investment has to be both domestic and international. And for that, we have to, in the first instance, open our doors for that investment. But merely by opening the doors, the investment won't come. Investment expects a conducive environment. Investment expects a reasonable return. And for that conducive environment, what we call popularly the ease of doing business, and therefore the time taken between an investor deciding to invest in this country, he may even be a domestic investor, and the actual launch of his project, the kind and the number of permissions he requires, the speed at which he requires those permissions, the kind of obstacles which have been conventionally created in that roadmap, all required to be removed. And therefore, slowly but surely, we've been taking steps in that direction. Business dislikes any form of unpredictability. And therefore, the regime which has to be offered in both in terms of policy, both in terms of various sectors, in terms of taxation, has to be highly predictable and non-adversarial. And therefore, the legacy of the past, which had created a regime of instability or an unpredictability, which created a negative impact amongst the investing community, are those areas which required to be removed. We are undertaking some of the most significant taxation reforms. In the second part of the budget session, I intend to go ahead with the constitution amendment on the GST. I have already said that this is a landmark indirect taxation reform. I have already said with regard to taxation, direct or indirect, the regime of enacting retrospectively or taking people by surprise is now over. On direct taxes, our effort is to make our direct taxation system not only non-adversarial but also globally compatible. And that is why I have announced a roadmap over the next 4 years of bringing down the rate of corporate tax in India from 30 to 25, phasing out the exemptions. Most of the litigations are in regard to exemptions. And the sectors with which we are concentrating at the moment, opening out of defense, opening out of insurance, opening out of railway infrastructure, virtually most sectors in India have been opened out. The unlocking of our resource in both coal and mining is going to have a major impact. Coal essential for industry, coal essential for power generation. And in terms of power and energy, the Urja emerging out of that, almost all avenues are areas where the Ministry of Power, the Ministry of Coal has taken huge amount of initiatives. the resources, financial resources coming out of these auctions are going to be transferred to the most deserving states in India, states with a high tribal population. So we'll see the growth and an economic activity in those states. At least facilities required for human habitation and existence will be available in those states, so states will get an annual resource to do that. Mineral will be now available on a more rational, more transparent criteria. Once these areas are unlocked, I think the whole process of developing infrastructure, and that's our recent initiative. So not only have we increased the budgetary support, we've tried to explore different methods of financing or long-term financing of that infrastructure. Railways can now go ahead. It has a backup support, or at least money kept in readiness from the LIC, 1.5 lakh crores, whether the railways needs it or not. An infrastructure fund where the government makes the first contribution. And now we expect various pension funds, sovereign funds to join in that, and that to be a stable fund for funding development of infrastructure. And one of the important centers of this activity is going to be the creation of new townships. So the whole concept of townships or smart cities, further expansion of suburban centers, all this is going to add to the economic activity. And absolutely essential for this is going to be the increased need for oil, for gas, for power. And these are the sectors with which you are directly concerned. India's needs are going to increase. I don't know how the economies world over are going to shape up. If I look through the tunnel, if prices remain stable, and I am one of those who doesn't subscribe to that momentary one-day excitement of a geopolitical event taking place and then panicking that this will have a long-term impact, things settle down in India. They settle down in the world. As I said, the first change that is visible is with the moderation of these prices, at least for some time, if not in perpetuity, there's going to be a huge transfer of wealth from the producing nations to the consuming nations. The consuming nations otherwise were on the receiving end. The nature of business is changing. In terms of transportation, the new methodologies which are being applied on the strength of technology in many parts of the world are leading to a situation where you cease to have a requirement of your own vehicle. Are we going to now see pooling as the next round? Something which technology may further enable in terms of user of these vehicles, which could lead to some energy saving. And I think when we in India prepare for the future, rather than get bogged down in technicalities or restricting or regulating, these are changes which have seen which technology has impacted on us, it has gifted upon the society. And therefore, how much it impacts, how much is the expansion of the economy, the new townships, the connectivities, the emergence of rapid transport systems, the substitution of public transport systems and these new taxi models on the need not to have a vehicle of your own, how much impact it is going to have on our energy needs today may not be a predictable proposition. But then these are all certainly going to have an impact. Just now, some e-commerce companies were, a few minutes ago, discussing with me in my office. And I'm surprised, at times pleasantly surprised to see the expansion, the pace of expansion of their trade itself. So if it can impact one area of life, it can probably impact several other areas of life.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/etnow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at etnowlive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/etnow.